Good evening, everybody. It's Sirius Voice here. Brigitte, Sirius James with Yes Our Radio, the positive voice of New York. And I'm excited because we are back and we have an amazing artist. I'm not going to tell you what genre she belongs to because I want her to explain her genre in her own words and break it down for you. I have Miss Letita Martin here with us. Welcome to the program.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. We're opening up in New York and phase two, and I'm excited. I can't wait to get back out into the world and to experience all the great things that we were once accustomed to, like going to the park, not having to wear a mask, being able to hug people, all of that good stuff. So I can't wait to get back to that, to just, be able to live again and be free. How about you?
I am the same way. I have actually have gone quarantine crazy now. So, for some sanity, even though Florida is a hot spot, I'm in Florida right now. We rented a Airbnb. Thank God we made sure that it had a pool attached to the house and it has like a game room, has like a restaurant on site and all those type things. So, I feel my like, just kind of coming back to me.
Excellent,
I
excellent.
finally feel like I'm getting a breath of fresh air.
That's great. Every once in a while, as a creative, you need that. You need that moment of exhale, to just keep going. Actually, because some people, and we know a lot of mainstream artists who they're just constantly going and going and going. There's never a break, and usually
Mhm.
they crash at the most inopportune time. So it's a good thing, what you're doing. How have you been coping as an artist right now during this COVID season? What are some of the
Ah,
things that you've been doing? Apart from doing the Airbnb, what are some of the things that you've been doing as a creative to cope?
gosh, honestly, it's almost a in a bad way, it's like a good time, like as an artist, as far as like coping wise, especially if you're a like a think tank like I am, like I'm always thinking about different ideas and different concepts and like visually trying to see like how to bring those things to light and trying to like organize everything in my mind. So I think right now, it's been good because it's given me some time to just slow the world down for a second. And like I'm a outdoorsy person, very I love nature. So I'll tend to like garden or something like that. And when I'm doing that, or if I'm just like in the backyard, I'll take my shoes off. I walk, I like feel the grass, and like I feel connected in those moments. And then I start to really dig into like inside of me. What am I like? What are my thoughts? What is happening? What am I hearing? Am I hearing melodies or harmonies, or am I seeing another concept for something visually? And so I really lean into that. And then I also started really taking some time. I just finally, a little late in the game, but set up my home studio. So really setting that up and starting to play with stuff and play with different sounds so that the stuff that's in my head, I can finally get out and I don't have to necessarily describe it to someone else. So really that's how I've been coping. But then I also have like you need this like pause button in your life. And so there are definitely times where within it I'll go outside, and I actually did this maybe like 5 days ago. I was sitting outside in the backyard and we have some like little string lights that are hanging out. And it was just feeling really good outside. And I just lay there and I was just listening to all different types and styles of music, and the breeze was blowing and just like taking it all in. And I was feeling like really inspired. And so I do a lot of those. Um, just like a lot of those things to just kind of help me get through this time. But I think it's a in an odd way, and in so many different ways, it's a perfect storm. And it's unfortunate that it's that way, but it is.
Excellent, excellent. Do you feel like it's made you a better artist in this season?
I think that I would say yes, because I think that it has stopped you enough to make you hone in and focus on maybe some things that you need to fine tune.
Right.
So many times when you're going and going, you don't actually stop to do that. But then
Mhm.
it also is making me start to take care of myself better. Like now, I start to feel, I can feel very quickly now, like I'm feeling dehydrated. I know what that feels like in here, and oh, I know that this feeling means I probably need to go drink this, or I'm depleted mineral wise. I probably need to go juice, or, I probably need to go work out, those type things. So it stopped me enough to really start to listen to my body. And I've been dealing with some stuff over like the past 5 years, anyways. And so I'm just starting to see more come up.
Excellent, excellent. So before we continue, I want you to tell our viewers your genre of music. Break it down for them because I think this is a first on the station.
So it is a fusion mix. I was not lying in my bio and even on the website. I am Letita. It is a fusion mix. It is a mixture of like EDM, pop. You hear some like electric sounds and like electric guitars, and then it has like an element of urban, um, and a little bit of fuse. There's some songs that I'm working on right now that has a little bit of fusion of like that hip hop style in there too. So when I say fusion music, it is definitely fusion music.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
it
'Cause we tend to oftentimes focus on all of the more mainstream type of sounds, but it's good when we have different types of sound, especially in this season that we're in. A little stray away from the norm is a good thing. So I applaud you for maintaining and sticking with that. I've been looking at your bio and your background. Tell us a little bit about, what it took for you to launch your music career because you had to overcome some things. And for the creatives that are watching, I'd love for you to just break down your story briefly to them.
Yeah, so it is really crazy. Like I always had a background of like singing and dancing. So that's always been to the core of me since I
Mhm.
came out. It just always came naturally. Once I got into high school, I started really turning down the wrong path. It was really interesting, like when I go back and look at it, because I was still very involved from a creative end, and I was really thriving in that space, and even from like choreography and stuff like that. And having a full ballet scholarship in the city that I was in at the time. All of those things. But then when I got to high school, it is true. Like when you link up, it's very important who you link up with. And I made that mistake. And I ended up dropping out of high school. And eventually later, so I got pregnant when I was 17, had my son when I was 18, and then started trying to figure out. So then after that particular time is when I gave my life back to Christ. And then it was interesting to try to figure out who I am as a mother, who I am as a woman, now that I'm this young lady, and then what is it that I wanted to do. And so again, I went back to what was natural to me, which was singing and which was dancing. And it I think it's interesting how, and I always say like your inner intuition is like your navigation system, and it leads you to your purpose, and to like to really to lean into that and to really follow it.
Mhm.
And so I literally just took like a leap of faith. And one day I was like, you know what? I sat down, I talked to my pastor, and I was like, hey, and I was probably 20 at the time. And I was like, I'm going to go to New York. And I didn't know anyone up there. I knew like one person who I grew up with. And I told my sister because I had never flown before. And I was like, hey, get a plane ticket. Um, and I went. And pretty much after that, the rest was history. I just started making connections, linking up with people every couple like months, like every other month, I was going back to make new connections and to continue to link up with people and continue to work on music. Then I met some people locally, and after that, I mean, it was history. I mean, the rest was it was just that. The rest was history.
You mentioned you gave your life back to Christ. That's huge. That's big because a lot of people, they grow up in the church. So the fact that they grew up in the church, they feel like, okay, well, I'm saved already. I don't need to do anything. Talk a little bit about that place that you came to where you realized that you had to do more than just exist. You had to recommit yourself to the Lord. Talk a little bit about that as a Christian artist.
Yeah, I think that it was. again, just like that inner intuition, inner voice, discernment, whichever, however, however anyone wants to phrase that. Um, I just knew. I don't think it was really something that I was like wavering in. For me, it was just something that I knew. I knew it was important to me. I knew that that was my life and my breath. And I knew that that was really the foundation that I had been raised on and had stood on for so long. Um, and I just did it. To be honest, it wasn't a long thought process.
That's great. Because a lot of gospel artists go through stuff just like everyone else. It's not like, you're a Christian, then you start doing music, and then you're like exempt from, any negative thing that happens in the world to the
Oh,
average
it's not
person.
stop.
You know,
Life happens,
it's exactly.
and be ready for it.
But the thing is, and the point that we want to put out there as the positive voice of New York is that, as a music minister, if you will, or someone in the music industry who loves the Lord, you might not necessarily do gospel, but you love the Lord. Um, we do have to recognize where we are, and every
Mhm.
so often, take inventory, because sometimes we'll get so carried away, with music, with touring, with doing this interview, that interview, getting so busy with the music that we forget that we have to check in. And
Mhm.
so that's why, I just want to stress for the viewers right now that it's good to take inventory. It's good to come back. Um, and just stay connected to the Lord, because it's very, very important. And it comes across in your music as well.
Yeah.
And speaking of music, you're working on an amazing new project,
I
and
am.
I heard the beautiful Chaos song. So tell us a little bit about the project, what it's called, what's the motivation behind it.
Ooh, gosh. So if you guys can hear me, I'm just like I'm holding my mic like this because this might be tripping sometime. But so beautiful chaos. Actually, it was funny. I had been going through my so I have been writing for years. Um, and I knew that the next project that I dropped, I really wanted to be something that was really close to me, and to my heart. And so I kept thinking, so I kept saying, okay, um, I had been going through a lot of hurt. And to be completely honest, again, how I was talking about that transition from figuring out who I was as a mother, figuring out who I was as a woman, figuring out, what am I doing with my life and rededicating myself to God. Um, when I dropped my first project, and I started really getting on the road for that, and I started touring, and I started going to all these different, gospel award shows, and I was in the room with some of the names that, that make things happen, and then some of the artists and stuff. I really found myself, if I had to be completely transparent, I found myself confused. Um, and I found myself confused because I found myself confused, and then my confusion turned into hurt, and then my hurt turned into anger, and then my anger turned into bitterness. And I had to step back and do a self check on myself and realize that these are people. And my relationship is not with people, my relationship is with God. Because, just dealing with multiple people throughout the industry, I started feeling like I had been duped. And I was like, wait a minute. All these people are singing about this, and we talk about this and such and such. This is not what's happening behind the scenes. What's going on? But I was feeling the pressure sometimes of like, oh, you have to sound like this, you have to, come off like this, and all these type things. And so in that space of again trying to figure out who you are as a person, trying to figure out who you are, in the space of mom, trying to figure out all these things, you're going through a lot of transition. Um, one thing that I have always struggled with outwardly is really being vulnerable and really saying how I felt on the inside. It's like saying, I'm insecure. I don't have it going on all the time. I'm struggling. My lights just got cut out. All those type things, but I'm trying to appear strong. And so when I started thinking about this project, initially I was thinking of Confessions of a Vulnerable Spirit. And I was like, I like it, but it's not quite where I wanted to be at. And so I kind of struggled with naming it. And then I was watching a sermon on YouTube from Sarah Jakes Roberts, and the title
Okay.
was Beautiful Chaos. And right when I saw it, I was like, that's the title. Beautiful Chaos, Confessions of a Vulnerable Spirit is the subtitle of it. And so the inspiration for that project was me actually finally peeling back the layers and saying all of the self-talk that was happening in my head, now finally saying that out loud, because that is the conversation that I was having with God. And even sometimes now I still have that. And I wanted to be able to like let it out for everyone who is having those moments of self-talk, and sometimes we don't always feel like we can go to the church to say, look, I'm really struggling here. um I'm not as strong as I am. We're starting to see like more mental health awareness and all these different things come out. But to say like, I understand prayer is good, I need something else too. Is there something else I could do with this? um, and so that's really where the album is coming from. So it's coming from the place of vulnerability, but it's also coming from a place of celebration at the same time.
Wow, that's excellent. So tell us, do you have any featured artists on the project? Tell us a little
Not
bit of
not
no.
on this project. Honestly, there were a couple that I was thinking about, but because I took such an hiatus, I have to warm up to people again, and I'm okay with
Okay,
that.
okay, okay.
I'm
Reorient yourself to the fan base. Yes,
yeah.
I completely understand. And that's very big of you, because a lot of artists tend to go with, let me try to use a famous name or someone who's out there already to sort of ride that wave to get attention. And it's good when you can, as an artist, say, no, I want to give them a sense of what I currently sound like and what I'm currently dealing with these new themes under Beautiful Chaos. That's great. I applaud you for doing that.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Just being able to make that decision. Talk a little bit about the team behind you and how important it is to have people that are advising you and helping you with the music to get to the next level.
Oh gosh. So team is very important. It's very important in so many different ways because your team essentially becomes your family when you look at it all in all.
Mhm.
Um, and so, gosh, I feel like I need to run down this like whole list. I'm not gonna do that, but I'll say over the course of several years, there have been so many different people behind me. So I do want to shout out to the North Carolina Gospel Guild. They've been behind me since day one. So a veteran, Bobby Jones. Excuse me, not Bobby Jones, Bobby Parker. Wrong person.
You can
Also,
still shout out Bobby
I'm
Jones. I'm
like,
sure he'd appreciate it.
I'm like, wait, wrong person. Let me make sure. Like Linda Greenwood, DJ Ronnie Ron, DJ I Rock Jesus, DJ Lace, Jonathan Bixby. And so my team, so I'll talk just a little bit about the history of my team. My team was actually two people that I can't remember who introduced me to them. But they started off managing me. There were two local guys who really wanted to start to manage for artists. They were looking for talent. They initially helped me jump off a lot of stuff with also a producer that I still work with that is also involved in this album, Derek Bartel. Um, and so from there, I ended up making a transition. So I worked with them for about 2 or 3 years, and we really started getting some good traction. And then I made a transition to another manager, Jonathan Bixby. God rest his soul. He passed away suddenly, which honestly, so that it. So can I kind of curve this interview slightly by
Sure,
feeding in
sure,
some?
sure,
Okay,
sure, sure.
I'll just put your hand up if you're like Tita. Slow down.
Oh,
Um, so I remember distinctly. I was in New York. I was in New York for 2 weeks, working on a couple different projects, and I got a call on a Monday, and that he was in the hospital, and that Thursday he passed away. Um, that was hard because it's hard when two that you look at them like family, but the other thing is that like you're relying on them for certain things. We were actually in the process during that time. I had a radio show that was called Tita's World. We had a team around us with that. And we quickly went on Friday nights in Greenville, South Carolina. It was local and then it also streamed. It went to number two show on Friday nights within about 2 months of us actually launching that. So then we started working on getting that syndicated as I was still touring independently as an artist.
Okay.
From there, about 4.5 months after that, I was working with DJ Lace, God rest his soul, as my marketing manager. And literally about 5-10 minutes after we got off the phone is when I found out he passed away.
Wow.
That was hard too. Um,
Wow.
so that was two solid staples in my career that within, and I feel myself tearing up, but within months of each other passed away. And I'm not going to lie, I hit rock bottom.
Mm,
Um, and that's when I kind of started withdrawing myself as an artist. I always kept writing,
mhm,
but I stepped back as an artist because the pain was so much. And even though I'm like a hard shell on the outside,
mhm,
um, things pierce deep, you know. So moving forward from there and like fast forwarding um to like now where we're at, someone that has always been on my team and is still there is DJ I Rock Jesus, DJ Ronnie Ron. I also work with a young gentleman, Nate Yeski, um, who has an amazing and phenomenal for any artists that are out there. He has a social brand course for you to take so that you can know who you are as an artist and really ask the right questions and figure out what that story is for you.
mhm.
um, and so I work with him just on a lot of different things. We bounce ideas off of each other.
Okay.
And then as far as management right now, I'm not working with anyone from a management standpoint. I think that as an artist, and it's interesting because even though I had really good traction then, I'm at a place of like starting over. And at first I was nervous about it, but I'm realizing that starting over is not always bad. And I even look at some other artists and some other songwriters that are in my life that you see them go through these transitions within their career. And
Mhm,
even with talking to them, it's been encouraging because I had one songwriter. She's an amazing songwriter. I'm going to shout her out, Crystal Nicole, who has written for any big name that you can think of under the sun. Um, and not exposing our whole conversation, but she made a statement to me, and she was like, yeah, even though I'm starting some different things, you call people and who once were like, yeah, you were the greatest thing ever, and now they act like they forgot they said it, and and you're starting over with that relationship. And that's truly how it is. But I've
mm.
learned to even embrace that moment of being like, you know what? Well, in starting over, look how much more you can create. What can you do? In challenging myself, like, can I do this again? You know?
Exactly. Wow. I am sorry that you lost those team members. And my prayer is definitely that the Lord will strengthen you and
Yeah.
send some amazing people that can definitely help you to get to that next level.
Yeah,
Um,
and I do want to, if I can, real quickly, because I
yes.
do want to just mention one other name, who I also lost, but he has been so influential in my career, and he's a New York native.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, so Ron Grant, who would do the open mics on Sunday night at Village Underground, and then he moved
Okay.
to I forgot which was the second location towards I think about the last 2 years, right before he passed, but and that honestly, that was hard, but that's the reason why I was like, I have to move forward with this project, because he listened to a lot of the stuff that I was writing before he passed. And it was the last thing he said is he was like, you need to put this out. He connected me with someone. And
Hmm.
then what was the other thing? And then he said, and I want you to start writing as a songwriter for other artists again too. And I
Hmm.
think that those were the things that really stuck with me. And even though I'm still a little bit in disbelief around that, I think that is what's pushing me forward, to continue to keep moving, because that was the end of 2008. And I wrote on my Facebook page during that time, because I didn't know I think that when you lose so many people in this space, you start to kind of put up a block around. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think anything's wrong. And I started going back and reading text messages and thinking about our conversations, and it was like he was trying to tell me, and I didn't want to ask or dig in or, be like, well, what's really going on? What do you mean? How sick are you? And I should have asked.
Mm,
Um, but I remember it was funny. I was supposed to see him that weekend in New York, and I ended up changing my schedule and going to Atlanta. And when I was there, I called him and I realized he couldn't talk, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? So then I text someone and I said, hey, he keeps picking up the phone, but I just hear him moaning. He's not saying anything. And then the person let me know he has stage 4 lung cancer. And I was like, okay. And I called him every day, and it was only 2 days. And then the last day that I called him, his wife answered the phone and was like, he's gone. But I just wanted to call that out because what I thought was amazing about that, even though the situation was so sad that I was able to find the silver lining in, is that he let me know he was there every day until he couldn't. And he was an amazing mentor to me too. And, it hurt, but I'm so happy that I had that time with him that I did. And he really, really spoke into my life a lot.
awesome, awesome. Just a little transition. There's a whole lot going on. It seems like, the country is going through three different major events. Obviously, we're in a recession. Number two, COVID-19, and number three, the peaceful protests that have been going on with Black America. As a artist who's looking to get to the next level, you're putting together your team, you're working on a new EP, having all of these meetings. How important do you think it is to incorporate your thoughts as an African American female, about what's going on with these protests across the country, and police brutality and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think 100% is important. I have now seen more um, artists that are underneath the faith umbrella finally saying something and speaking out. And let me not get it wrong. I wasn't waiting for them to. I don't think that I was waiting for anyone for me to actually be able to say anything. Um, but I appreciate seeing it happen because I think a lot of times we stayed out of the politics discussion.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of artists do at some point just to try to stay under the fray because they don't want to lose audiences and stuff like that. But this is way too important just to be silent on it. So in combination, so this is another piece of encouragement for people who are out there who are looking, whether you're relaunching a career like I am, or whether you are trying to just get your grit and get your feet on the ground with it. It is okay for you to work and do this on the side until the other one takes over, one or the other. So um so right after Jonathan and DJ Lace passed away, I decided to go and start working in the corporate world in partnership, or not in partnership, but as I was still writing and as I was still doing music and stuff like that as an artist. And even in that space where I have found myself thriving at is when um, I can take what's happening around society, around everything, and bring it into the workspace and say, let's have conversations around this.
Hmm.
Let's create content even in this space because what companies are starting to realize even now is that um, everything that you're influenced by still comes into the workplace, whether you talk about it or not. What people are thinking up here and where their minds are at up here is still in there. And so I do a lot of work around helping to shape the cultural environment, or people call it inclusion and diversity,
Okay.
having difficult conversations, those type things. And honestly, I feel blessed. And I feel blessed that I'm respected in that area. And I have anywhere from peers to leaders to VPs to EVPs come and have conversations with me around it because they just want to know and they're trying to figure out what can we do. And so I think it's really important right now for artists to have a voice to that. And don't be scared to put out music around that that is empowering your own people or either being an ally for the ones that need to be empowered or need voices to help speak up for them too. So yeah.
I think it's human to respond to what's going on right now. Like you've got to have a heartbeat. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to be a completely heartless, blind, non-hearing, non-seeing person, locked
Hmm.
away somewhere in some faraway country where there's no news, there's nothing at all happening. Because
Yeah. You
never
got to
mind
literally be
that.
on a meditation retreat.
Yes, never mind the fact that the two of us are black. Even if we were Asian, Caucasian, whatever the case might be, just to look at the pictures, look at the videos, to look at the hurting family members, mothers, cousins, husbands, wives, etc. It's painful. And
Oh
and
yeah.
and
And
it you have to respond in some way if you're human. So, I think that, and I agree with you that as a creative, it behooves us to do something and to use the giftings that we have to express that. You as a singer, I try to sing sometimes, but I primarily rap.
you can do it.
But there's a lot of people out there who paint. A lot of people have used
Hmm.
that skill set to do it, but we can't not do anything. We can't shut it out
Absolutely.
and just say, well, I'll just go black for 3 months and then come back and release whatever and do this movie and not incorporate anything about it. No. And this is
Hmm.
why I think too, a lot of our NBA players are opting out because they understand the importance. It's right now, it's happening. How can you ignore it and just go
Oh
back
yeah.
to business as usual? So,
Yeah. And
in
I
that
mean the thing
respect.
is it's like, I heard someone make a statement. I won't say who it was, but I heard someone make a statement and they were talking about like the situation with the NBA players and they were like, it's not going to make a difference because they said that the owners and stuff are not the ones who are pushing legislation. But I'm like, but the owners, we all know that the government and legislation moves by money. When you have owners that are billionaires and their players are not showing up and it's affecting their money, and they start to realize it is us that is making you the money, yeah, you might decide that you want to jump in there and start to do something in a meaningful way and not just put out a statement. And I think that's where we're starting to see a lot of challenge come across the board, even with companies, is that now we're even starting to pull back the layer even more of like, okay, it's great you're making all these statements, but now let's look and see what your organization looks like. Let's see how much you are walking that walk and talking that talk. And
Exactly.
now it is starting to show up in a real way. Data does not
That's the
lie.
scary part. That's the super scary part. To look at the percentage of African Americans in management roles. It's easy to get an entry level or that mid level position that goes nowhere. That's it. That is
Mhm.
your ceiling. There's nowhere else to go. But when it comes to vice presidents, senior vice presidents, how many black and brown people are in those positions? Not
Yeah,
very, very few. And so it
yeah,
is very important not just to put a statement out on Twitter. Twitter, I mean that's for right now, but we
that's
need
right.
some substantial change. We need
Yeah.
substantial change. Even with the painting of Black Lives Matter on the streets, and I know
Oh
that.
my God,
um,
I have been screenshotting all of those because I've been screenshotting every time I see it and then putting it in a folder that says 2020 so I can go back and look at that. It's like even though you can go find it, I'm not trying to scroll to find it. But yeah, I feel you. It's beautiful, it's amazing, and it's powerful right now.
oh yeah, and there's nothing wrong with being proud to be who we are. There's nothing wrong with that. And for so many years, as a person who's worked in media for a number of years, in mainstream national media and working independently through ESR Radio. I've noticed how, when it comes to I'm black and I'm proud, a lot of people, they want to, oh no, keep it down, honey. Let's not get too, too proud and too boastful about who we are. But there's nothing wrong with that. This is
Everybody else is.
yes.
Everybody else is.
Everybody else is proud of who they are. And if you are watching right now, you should be proud of who you are. If you're African
Absolutely.
American, Caucasian, Asian, Boricua, whatever it is that you are, be proud of who you are. Proud of the person that God has created you to be. And getting ready to hear my sister's beautiful Chaos project. Another thing I want to get into, and I love the fact that you have a career and you're balancing the career in, corporate America and also your music career. Tell us a little bit about the Trevor Noah post that you made on Facebook, I noticed, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So actually it was last year. It was last year for Black History Month, actually. I wanted to figure out, because what I started realizing is I started really realizing that um a lot of companies they were having a little bit of an issue trying to figure out how to have difficult conversations. And when I started seeing those conversations show up, I started seeing them show up more at like your leadership levels, like your very, very high. So like your executive leadership teams and like your VPs, and it's showing up at that level. But I kept hearing around me peers, water cooler talk about this and not really being brought into the conversation. And so I wanted to think about, like, how do I bring people into the conversation? One, but how do I make sure people are ready to have the conversation too? And so I launched 4 videos. So it's the middle ground concept, and the middle ground concept is not a new concept. I did not create it. So let me just say that. Um, what I did do is I took it from being something that was done just kind of like more independently with some different production teams, and then said, how do we now lift and drop that into the corporate setting to allow people to have a conversation where they can be heard, they're listening, they're being respected. We can actually start to uncover different pieces of ourselves and each other in it, in a way that was bold, but not disempowering. And so I ended up creating one of we had 4 different segments. And so I created one that was called Being Black in Corporate America. And so I had some of the African American employees come in and start to have that conversation. And so what you do is, when the video starts, you make a statement. You have people standing there. You make a statement. If they agree with the statement, they sit down and they start having the conversation. I can't remember what the first statement was that we did, but the second statement was something along the lines of, Blacks are known for their athletic abilities and not their intellect. And then they sit down again and they start having a conversation. So they agreed with the statement, they sat down and they start having a conversation. One thing I'm always very particular about is not editing stuff, like really letting it be authentic. So we didn't go back and like, stop, we're going to re-record this again. We just recorded and let whatever came out came out. So fast forward, here we are now, still going through the same stuff. And Trevor Noah picks up a conversation, just starting to talk about Blacks in corporate America. And lo and behold, he picks up that video, and we see the video. It's a small snippet of the video, but we see the video of them having the conversation about being Black in corporate America. And I was like, oh wow, it's funny because I literally saw it like 8 o'clock in the morning. I was like laying there kind of scrolling through, and then I just clicked it and I was just listening to it as I was getting ready. And then I heard something and I was like, wait a minute, this sounds like and I went back and I looked at it, I was like, oh, it is. And I was just like, wow.
Did you
So
did
you just
you
never know where stuff is gonna go when you put it out there, and when you
Right. Did you feel great because you felt like, well, the fact that, because he's an international figure, and to have someone like him with such exposure share something that you had been working on, did you feel like, wow, I'm really making an impact? Tell us how you felt.
yeah, I felt I mean, gosh, I was shocked for a second because like I love Trevor Noah. Um, I think it was confirmation. Just like I said, like at the beginning of this, I think we all have a natural navigation system on the inside of us that if we just listen to it, that voice, our intuition, our discernment, if we listen to it and we
Mhm.
follow it, I believe that we start to see more things like that. And every time that I have listened to it and just executed on it, I've always seen stuff like that show up in different ways. I did not I couldn't have even like I couldn't time that, you know? I did it because it was something on the inside of me. It was a problem that I saw. I wanted to solve it. I wanted to use a creative vehicle or creative means to be able to do it and to bring people together so that we can start to reconcile what's happening within our world and everything like that. And that was really the whole gist of it. And that's how I felt with it. So I
Excellent.
definitely was grateful.
Excellent. I think I want to play the snippet for Beautiful Chaos a little bit. Just give a little background story on the Beautiful Chaos song.
Oh, so how I talked about fusion music, having a blend of all different types of styles and sounds, I absolutely love it. I grew up in the Midwest. Well, I don't know if you call it I grew up in South Dakota, moved to the East Coast, so I grew up in like these different cultural sounds, and so I had like a lot of the sounds that I listen for and that remind me of like those times, those eras, my childhood is what I like to bring in. This particular one, because I love beats and I love different tropical and African, and my husband's Jamaican. So I wanted a fusion of like some type of like Caribbean, but like a feel good,
Mm.
um, but still like the content of it and like what I'm saying in it made you feel like I can like I'm going through it, I can still get out. Things are crazy, it's happening, but at the same time you're still kind of like, you're still grooving with it. So it has that blend for Beautiful Chaos. It Every song has a very different sound, but that was Beautiful Chaos.
All right. So, folks, here's a snippet of Beautiful Chaos by Letita. When all was closing, I lose my faith in it. I hear you say clearly, trust you in this beautiful day. Closing, I lose my faith in it. I hear you say clearly, trust you in this beautiful chaos. Oh, oh, beautiful chaos. Oh, oh. I pulled it back so they can hear it again. Trust you in this beautiful chaos. Oh, oh, beautiful chaos. Oh, oh. Excellent. That was Beautiful Chaos. And when can we expect the project to be released?
So I've been thinking about the timing for this. And honestly, I'm thinking right around the first of the year because I would like to drop another single right before then. And then also, right when we hit that time, we have the holidays. So there's a Christmas single that's going to be dropping. And so I figured right at the beginning of the year, we might as well go ahead and let it drop since it's had two singles before that. And then we also have a Christmas single. The audience should be warmed up by then.
Excellent. Excellent. That's what I'm talking about. I love the sound. Was there a particular artist, a particular fusion artist or just artist period musician who really inspired you and you find that you go back to them every once in a while, when you're not creating to just enjoy music?
Oh God. Oh, how that's challenging for me because I go back to like a plethora. again, because of the sounds that I like I've recently been listening to oh gosh, I think it is Lana Del Rey. Um, Serena Gomez has this. She has like a couple songs I love the sound in. Demi Lovato has a couple sounds I love the song in. Beyonce, she always has some different sounds that you love. I love how she's experimenting too with her
Is
style.
there anything
I feel like
that's not lovable by Beyonce? I think across the
I feel
board.
like she's my yeah. I feel like she's my soul twin from like another world.
That's what.
Because she's always thinking about like the next sound,
Mm,
or either she's finding a way to like make it her own, and I love stuff like that, and that's also what I do. um Also, I'm trying to think, like, honestly, so what caught me off guard and I ended up binge listening to this album recently was Tiana Taylor's new album. um
oh, I love Tiana
oh
Taylor.
yeah.
She's amazing. She's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love her whole,
um
because I'm an East Coast person, so she has that East Coast New York vibe that she always brings across on her
oh
project.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I loved her when I saw her in the back in the day. It was like MTV Sweet 16, and she wanted like the bike. I was like, yes, tomboy, there you go. I was like, that's me. Give me a bike. Um, but I'm trying to think who else. I listen to so many different artists. Uh, so I've been listening to unusual artists lately. Again, how I mentioned like some just like recently. I've also just discovered TKA Twigs.
Okay. Okay.
She's very unique in a space, and I'll tell you why. So some people may be like, "Oh my gosh, she didn't call out any Christian or gospel artists." So let me just go ahead and just talk to that real quick.
Ah,
The reason why I don't lean in as much, so there are some Christian gospel artists that I listen to. So let me not say that I don't. I do. I don't lean in as heavy when I'm doing my own writing, especially when I'm in a writing season for myself,
mhm.
because one, I know sounds that I like, but two, when I find myself listening to it, I find those insecurities in myself coming out to where I start feeling the pressure of having to sound like them to be successful.
Mhm.
And I already went through that and I don't want that. Um, and so for me, I kind of I put that to the side so that the sounds that I am creating or how I'm writing or, styles, hooks, musical selections are not based on, oh, I want to do it because the industry sounds like this. No, I need it to resonate with me as a person because I feel like that's the way that people will get me authentically as an artist. And I do believe, and this is one thing that I also kind of like struggle with a little bit because and I've said this before, if anyone has listened to like previous interviews, if God is a God of creativity, all of our stuff should not be sounding alike anyways.
Right,
Um,
right, exactly.
and so I really lean into, and again, you've heard me like say it on here, is like really leaning into like the inward, like what is that thing that connects with me, and giving the audience that, because I
Mhm.
believe that even though my sound may not be as popular overall in like the gospel or Christian world, I believe that there are people who are still connecting with it and are still leaning into it and are still looking for something that's going to be different but still resonate with them from a message perspective and really dig in deep to their inner self.
Excellent. We're winding down, and I want to give you the opportunity to speak to someone that's watching. They could be a creative, or they could just, be a fan of the music, and they're watching, and they might be having a hard time. There's so many people that are without jobs right now, furloughed, that sort of thing, laid off, in so many different situations. How do you speak to them? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I'll say that you're probably in a season of beautiful chaos. So I'll say the words of the chorus: when the walls close in, I lose my faith in it. I hear you say clearly, trust me in this beautiful chaos. So I would say lean in. I would say trust God. I would say listen. He has everybody still. Listen to what he's saying. You probably have. I bet 100% of people out there have some type of idea or business or something that they have always wanted to start it or something that they wanted to do, now is like the time in the season to start really honing in on that and figuring out how to actually do it. And there's more ways to do it than just going and getting a loan. Get creative with how to make that happen. And so I would, but I also understand that not having a check is very real. And so I would say even during that time, um, gosh, it's I've been there before, but I would just say still, try to keep the faith. Try to keep the faith.
Thank
Don't
you
give
so
up.
much. Thank you so much, Letita. And I want you guys to follow her. Tell them your social media links.
Yeah, so website is everything is I am Letita, and Letita is spelled L-E-T as in Tom, I-T-A, so Letita. I am Letita. Whether you do .com or Twitter or Instagram, you'll find me in all of those.
Excellent. I am Letita. I'll be sure to follow you as soon as we get off of the feed. It was such a pleasure to have you on tonight and to just chop it up, to get away from from being stuck in the
Oh
house
yeah.
and just doing the same, things day after day. And it's really good. And just keep pressing forward. And we're really looking forward to hearing Beautiful Chaos from beginning to end and seeing the promotions behind it and all of that stuff. We'd love to have you back on, in the first quarter of 2021 when you release the project. We'd love to have you back on. Maybe we could even have you, when the country's reopened fully, have you at one of our cafes out here on Long Island. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
And this is an official invitation. So, connect us with whomever, and we would definitely love to have you. Keep pressing forward, sis. God bless. Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.